Her daughter called a stranger, "Daddy." He smiled, knowing he once loved her mother. "Hello, let's hear another incredible story. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. I love narrating stories for you, so get ready. Let's start." The autumn breeze swept through Central Park, carrying with it the laughter of children and the rustle of golden leaves. Janelle Thomas adjusted her daughter's purple wool hat, smiling as the 4-year-old squealed with delight at the sight of squirrels darting between trees. These Saturday morning outings had become their sacred ritual, a piece of normalcy she'd carefully crafted over the years. "Mommy, can I go play?" Aubrey bounced on her toes, her dark curls peeking out from beneath her hat, eyes bright with anticipation as she pointed toward the playground. "Stay where I can see you, baby," Janelle called after her daughter, who was already racing toward the swings. She found her usual bench, the one with the perfect view of the entire playground, and pulled out her phone to check her work emails. As a pediatric nurse, her weekends were precious, but the hospital never truly left her thoughts. The sounds of children playing created a familiar backdrop as she scrolled through her messages. A young resident needed advice about a difficult case. A colleague was organizing a birthday celebration, and her supervisor wanted to discuss a promotion. 5 years ago, she couldn't have imagined building such a life for herself, not when she'd fled Boston with nothing but a suitcase and a secret growing inside her. A child's cry snapped her attention back to the playground. Her eyes immediately found Aubrey, who had abandoned the swings and was now standing stock still in the middle of the wood-chip-covered ground. Janelle's heart skipped a beat as she noticed her daughter's stance. Head tilted slightly, finger pointed ahead, mouth forming words she couldn't quite hear. Rising from the bench, Janelle's nurse's instincts kicked in, scanning for signs of danger or distress. But as she drew closer, the world suddenly tilted on its axis. "Daddy!" The word hung in the air like frost, crystallizing the moment. Janelle's steps faltered as she followed her daughter's pointing finger to a man standing near the climbing frame. He wore a navy peacoat, his dark hair slightly longer than she remembered, but there was no mistaking those warm brown eyes that had once looked at her with such love and now widened with shock as they met hers. Michael Reyes. 5 years dissolved like sugar in rain. The carefully constructed walls around her heart developed hairline cracks as memories flooded in, moonlit walks along the Boston harbor. The way his laugh seemed to start in his eyes before reaching his lips, the gentle stroke of his thumb across her cheek as he told her he loved her, and then the last memory, the devastation in those same eyes when she told him she was leaving, offering no explanation, no real goodbye. "Oh, Janelle," his voice carried the weight of 1,000 unasked questions. Aubrey, oblivious to the tension crackling between the adults, tugged at Michael's coat. "You look like the picture in Mommy's box, the one she thinks I don't know about." The color drained from Janelle's face. She'd kept that photo hidden in her keepsake box, buried beneath birthday cards and hospital pay stubs. Sometimes, late at night when sleep eluded her, she'd take it out, their last happy moment together, captured at his sister's wedding. She'd trace the outline of his smile with her finger, wondering if she'd made the right choice. "Aubrey, honey, come here." Janelle's voice trembled slightly as she reached for her daughter's hand. The girl's innocent words had already done their damage. She could see the calculations happening behind Michael's eyes as he looked between them, noting Aubrey's age, her familiar features, the timing of Janelle's disappearance. How old is she? The question was quiet, but it carried the force of a thunderclap. Before Janelle could answer, a sharp voice cut through the tension. "Michael, there you are." A woman in elegant riding boots and a camel coat approached, her blonde hair perfectly styled despite the wind. She stopped short when she noticed the scene before her, her manicured eyebrows drawing together in confusion. "Rebecca," Michael acknowledged, without taking his eyes off Janelle and Aubrey. I'll catch up with you later." The woman's gaze darted between them, understanding dawning in her eyes. "Of course," she said, her tone carefully neutral. "Call me later." She squeezed his arm before walking away, her boots clicking against the pathway. Aubrey, sensing the adult's discomfort, pressed closer to Janelle's side. "Mommy, did I do something wrong?" "No, baby." Janelle stroked her daughter's hair, trying to project a calm she didn't feel. "You didn't do anything wrong." But inside, her mind raced. Everything she'd sacrificed, every careful step she'd taken to protect her daughter and Michael from the truth, all of it threatened to unravel because of a chance encounter in a park. "And she's 4, isn't she?" Michael's voice was rough with emotion. "That's why you left. You were—" He couldn't finish the sentence, but his eyes said everything his words didn't. A gust of wind swept through the park, sending leaves swirling around their feet. Janelle pulled Aubrey closer, as if she could shield her from the storm that was about to break. "Michael, I don't." He held up a hand, and she could see it trembling. "Well, don't tell me it's not what I think. Don't stand there and lie to me again." The hurt in his voice cut through her like a blade. "Is she mine?" The question hung between them like a suspended drop of water, ready to fall and create ripples that would change everything. Janelle looked down at her daughter, their daughter, who was watching the exchange with curious eyes that matched her father's exactly. "We should talk," Janelle finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But not here, not in front of her." Michael's jaw clenched, and for a moment Janelle thought he might refuse. But then he nodded, pulling out his phone with hands that weren't quite steady. "Your number," he said. "Give it to me." And Janelle, his eyes met hers, and the mix of pain and determination she saw there made her heart ache. "Don't disappear on me again. Not until I know the truth, all of it." As she recited her number, watching him save it with quick, angry movements, Janelle felt the weight of her secrets pressing down on her. How could she explain that she'd left to protect him? That her mother's manipulation and dangerous connections had threatened not just their happiness, but their safety? That sometimes love meant walking away, even when it broke your heart to do so? The answer was simple. She couldn't. Not yet. Not until she was sure that the shadows from her past had truly faded. But as she watched Michael walk away, his shoulders rigid with suppressed emotion, she realized that the time for hiding was over. The truth would come out, one way or another. She just prayed they would all survive it. Michael Reyes stood in his Manhattan apartment, staring at the city lights blurring through the rain-streaked windows. The glass of bourbon in his hand remained untouched, much like the scattered case files on his desk, both silent witnesses to the hours he'd spent lost in thought since leaving the park. 4 years. The numbers haunted him, spinning through his mind like fragments of a broken dream. 4 years of birthdays he'd missed, first words he hadn't heard, steps he hadn't guided. The weight of lost time pressed against his chest until he could barely breathe. His phone buzzed again. The third time Rebecca had tried to reach him. He let it go to voicemail, just as he had with the previous calls. How could he explain to his girlfriend of 8 months that his entire world had shifted on its axis in a single morning? That a little girl with familiar eyes had pointed at him and called him Daddy? The bourbon glass met the kitchen counter with more force than intended, and Michael ran his hands through his hair, disheveling it further. The pristine order of his apartment, all chrome and leather and carefully chosen art pieces, suddenly felt like a mockery. What good was building the perfect life when it was built on incomplete foundations? His phone lit up again, but this time it wasn't Rebecca. The text message preview showed a name he'd deleted years ago but never forgotten. "I know you have questions. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., Burton's Coffee on West 82nd. I'll tell you everything." Michael's throat tightened. Janelle. Even seeing her name on his screen brought back the scent of her jasmine perfume, the sound of her laugh, the way she used to trace patterns on his arm while they talked about their future. A future that had vanished the morning he woke to find her gone, leaving nothing but a hastily written note. "I'm sorry. Please don't look for me." He'd honored that request, though it had nearly broken him. Thrown himself into his work at the law firm, made partner 2 years ahead of schedule, dated sensible women who didn't make his heart race. And now, the buzzer of his apartment rang, startling him from his thoughts. Through the intercom, Rebecca's voice carried a note of concern. "Michael, I brought dinner. You seemed upset earlier, and I thought—" He pressed his forehead against the cool wall, guilt mixing with the tumult of other emotions churning inside him. Rebecca deserved better than silence, better than a boyfriend whose past had just crashed into his present with the force of a tidal wave. "Coming down," he replied, grabbing his keys. He couldn't avoid this conversation, even if he dreaded it. The lobby of his building was quiet, the doorman discreetly busy with his crossword puzzle as Rebecca waited, holding a bag from their favorite Italian restaurant. Her blonde hair was slightly damp from the rain, and her expression softened with relief when she saw him. "You look terrible," she said, but her tone was gentle. "And want to tell me what happened back there?" Michael led her to one of the lobby's sitting areas, away from the doorman's polite pretense of disinterest. The leather chairs creaked as they sat, and the bag of food settled between them like a barrier. "The woman in the park," he began, his voice rougher than he intended. "Janelle, she is someone I used to know, someone important." Rebecca's hands stilled on the takeout bag. "The one who left you? You told me about her once, after that charity gala when you'd had too much champagne." He nodded, the memory of that vulnerable moment making him uncomfortable. "That little girl. She's 4 years old, Rebecca. Janelle disappeared 5 years ago. The timing—" Understanding dawned in Rebecca's eyes, followed quickly by something else. Disappointment, perhaps, or resignation. "You think she's yours?" "I don't think—" "I know." The certainty had been growing in him all day, like a photograph slowly developing. Those eyes, the way she tilts her head. I saw my sister's kids do the same thing at that age. And Janelle, the way she looked at me when her daughter called me daddy, she didn't deny it. Rebecca was quiet for a long moment, her fingers tracing the pattern on the takeout bag. When she spoke, her voice was carefully controlled. "What are you going to do?" "I'm meeting her tomorrow morning. I need answers." He reached for Rebecca's hand, but she pulled back slightly. "And after you get those answers?" Her eyes met his, searching. "Michael, I've dated enough to recognize a turning point when I see one. That little girl. If she's yours, everything changes." "Rebecca," she stood, smoothing her skirt with trembling hands. "Keep the food. You probably haven't eaten all day. And Michael," she paused, her composure cracking just slightly, "whatever you discover tomorrow, whatever you decide to do, just remember that you deserve the whole truth. Don't let her half-explain things this time." He watched her walk away, her heels clicking against the marble floor, and felt a fresh wave of guilt. Rebecca deserved better than being collateral damage in this situation. But she was right. Everything had changed the moment Aubrey pointed at him in that park. Back in his apartment, Michael pulled out his phone and opened his photos. In a folder he rarely accessed, buried under years of newer memories, was a picture from his sister's wedding. He and Janelle dancing under string lights, her head thrown back in laughter as he dipped her. They'd been so young, so in love, so certain of their future together. Now, looking at it with new eyes, he noticed something he'd missed before, the way Janelle's hand rested protectively over her stomach, so subtle it could have been unconscious. Had she known then? Was that the moment she decided to leave? His finger hovered over the delete button, but he couldn't do it. Instead, he opened his text messages and typed a reply to Janelle. "I'll be there. And this time, I need the whole truth. No more running." The response came almost immediately. "No more running. I promise." Michael set his phone down and walked to his home office. From the bottom drawer of his desk, he pulled out a small velvet box he'd never been able to throw away. Inside, a vintage sapphire ring caught the light, the ring he'd planned to give Janelle the week she disappeared. He'd kept it as a reminder to guard his heart more carefully. But now it felt like evidence of unfinished business, of questions that needed answers, of a love story that had been interrupted rather than ended. Tomorrow, he would look into Janelle's eyes and demand the truth about their daughter, about her disappearance, about everything she'd kept hidden, but tonight he would sit with his memories and try to prepare himself for whatever revelations morning might bring. Because one thing was certain, the careful life he'd built in the wake of Janelle's departure was about to shatter like a glass dropped on marble floors, and he had no idea what pattern the pieces would form when they settled. Burton's coffee shop buzzed with its usual morning crowd, but Janelle had arrived early enough to secure a corner table, partially hidden behind a tall potted plant. She wrapped her hands around her untouched cup of chai, using its warmth to steady her trembling fingers. The night had been sleepless, filled with Aubrey's innocent questions about the man from the park and memories that refused to stay buried. Her daughter was safe with her neighbor Mrs. Chen, who had become like a grandmother to Aubrey over the past 3 years. The elderly woman hadn't asked questions when Janelle appeared at her door at dawn, only nodded and promised to keep Aubrey entertained with Chinese paper crafts and homemade dumplings. The bell above the door chimed, and Janelle's heart stuttered. Michael stood in the entrance, scanning the room with the same intensity she remembered from his early days as a law clerk. He'd always had that ability to command attention without trying, but now it was refined, polished by success and time. His charcoal suit spoke of corner offices and partnership meetings, while the shadows under his eyes revealed a sleepless night that matched her own. Their eyes met, and for a moment neither moved. Then Michael walked to her table, each step measured and deliberate. He didn't sit immediately, instead standing over her with his hands in his pockets. "I ordered you coffee," Janelle said softly. "Black, 2 sugars, unless that's changed too." The ghost of something, pain perhaps, or bitter amusement, crossed his face as he finally took the seat across from her. "Some things haven't changed." He wrapped his hands around the cup but didn't drink, though apparently fatherhood did, without my knowledge. Janelle flinched at the controlled anger in his voice. "Michael, no!" He cut her off, his voice low but fierce. "Before you say anything else, I need to know. Is she mine? I deserve that much truth at least." Janelle met his gaze steadily, though it cost her every ounce of strength she possessed. "Yes, Aubrey is your daughter." Michael closed his eyes briefly, his hands tightening around the coffee cup until his knuckles whitened. When he opened them again, they shone with unshed tears. "I've missed 4 years of her life. 4 years, Janelle. Her first steps, her first words, everything. How could you do that to me? To her, I didn't have a choice." The words came out barely above a whisper. "There's always a choice." His voice rose slightly, drawing glances from nearby tables. He noticed and leaned in closer, continuing more quietly but with no less intensity. "You chose to leave without a word. You chose to hide my child from me. You chose to rob me of the chance to be a father. To protect you both." The words burst from her before she could stop them. "My mother, Loretta," Michael's brow furrowed. "What does she have to do with any of this?" Janelle's hands began to shake again, and she clasped them tightly in her lap. "Everything. She has everything to do with this." She took a deep breath, knowing that once she started speaking, there would be no going back. "Do you remember that case you were working on, right before I left? The one about the charity foundation?" Michael's expression shifted from anger to confusion. "The Winchester Foundation fraud case. That was just a simple financial audit." "No." Janelle's voice cracked. "It wasn't simple at all. My mother, she was involved with them, deeply involved. When she found out you were investigating," understanding began to dawn in Michael's eyes. "The investigation did uncover something bigger, money laundering, connections to organized crime, but it was all dead ends and sealed records. We could never prove." He trailed off, staring at her. "Janelle, what did your mother do?" She glanced around the coffee shop, suddenly aware of how public their location was. "Not here. There's a small park 2 blocks down." "Please." Michael studied her for a long moment before nodding. They left their barely touched drinks behind, stepping out into the crisp morning air. The walk to the park was silent, heavy with unspoken words and 5 years of separation. The park was empty except for a few joggers who paid them no attention. They found a bench, partially concealed by flowering bushes, and Janelle took another deep breath of the cool air. My mother called me to her house that night, just after you told me about the audit. She had files, photos, documents, things that would have destroyed your career before it began. She said she could plant evidence, make it look like you were involved in the fraud. She had connections, people who owed her favors. Janelle's voice shook. She said, if I didn't leave, if I didn't keep you away from the investigation, she would ruin you. Why didn't you tell me? Michael's voice was hoarse. We could have fought it together. You don't know my mother, not really. Janelle's laugh was bitter. She showed me other photos too, of your sister's house, your parents' restaurant. She made it clear that it wouldn't just be your career. She would destroy your whole family. And then you found out you were pregnant, Michael said softly. Janelle nodded, wiping away tears she hadn't realized were falling. 2 days before I left, I knew then I had to go. I couldn't risk my mother using our child as another piece of leverage. She's capable of things you can't imagine, Michael. Things I've spent years trying to forget. Michael was quiet for a long moment, processing. When he spoke again, his voice was careful, controlled. Where is Loretta now? I don't know. Janelle wrapped her arms around herself. After I left, I cut all ties, changed my phone, my email, everything. I haven't spoken to her since that night, but sometimes I see cars parked outside our apartment building, men I don't recognize watching us. I can never be sure if it's paranoia or if she's found us again. Jesus, Janelle. Michael ran a hand over his face. All these years, I imagined every possible reason you might have left. But this, he turned to face her fully. Why now? Why stay in New York where she could find you? Because running forever isn't living. Janelle met his eyes. Aubrey deserves better than a life spent looking over her shoulder. And yesterday, when she recognized you from that photo, she smiled sadly. Maybe it was fate stepping in, or maybe I was just tired of letting fear control our lives. Michael reached out slowly, hesitantly, and took her hand. His touch sent electricity through her arm, just like it had 5 years ago. Tell me everything, he said quietly. Every detail, every suspicion, everything you know about your mother's involvement. I'm not that powerless law clerk anymore, Janelle. I have resources now, connections of my own. Michael, no. She tried to pull her hand away, but he held firm. You don't understand how dangerous. What I understand, he interrupted, is that I have a daughter who called me daddy before she even knew who I was. I understand that the woman I loved, still love, God help me, has been carrying this burden alone for 5 years, and I understand that it's time for that to end. A jogger passed their bench, and Janelle used the moment to collect herself. When she spoke again, her voice was stronger. If I tell you everything, there's no going back. My mother, she'll know, and this time she'll come after all of us. Michael's hand tightened around hers. Then we'll be ready for her, together. Looking into his eyes, Janelle saw the same determination that had first drawn her to him in law school, but now it was tempered by experience, by pain, by years of building himself into someone stronger. Maybe he was right. Maybe it was time to stop running. She squeezed his hand back and began to talk. The late afternoon sun painted long shadows across Michael's office as he stared at the screen before him. Files from the Winchester Foundation case filled his dual monitors. Financial records, witness statements, and court documents he hadn't looked at in years. But now, with Janelle's revelations echoing in his mind, familiar details took on sinister new meanings. A knock at his door interrupted his concentration. "Now come in," he called, minimizing the windows with practiced speed. David Chen, his longtime friend and the firm's top investigator, stepped inside and closed the door. "Got your message?" Sounded urgent. He paused, taking in Michael's appearance. "You look like hell. I need a favor." Michael gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Off the books." David's eyebrows rose as he sat down. "Those are expensive words, my friend. I need everything you can find on Loretta Williams. Focus on the last 5 years, but go back as far as you need to. Michael pushed a notepad across the desk. These are the details I have. And David, this needs to stay between us. His friend studied the notes, his expression growing more serious with each line. This has something to do with Janelle, doesn't it? The one who disappeared. Michael nodded, then added quietly, and my daughter. David's head snapped up. Your what? It's a long story. Michael ran a hand through his already disheveled hair. Can you help? You know I can. David pocketed the notepad. But Michael, if half of what you've written here is true, we're talking about serious criminal connections. Are you sure you want to pull this thread? Before Michael could answer, his phone buzzed with a text from Janelle. Aubrey keeps asking about you. Would you like to meet her, properly this time? His heart jumped into his throat. David, noticing his friend's expression, stood up. Whatever this is, be careful. I'll start digging tonight. After David left, Michael stared at the message for a long moment before replying, Yes, please. The response came quickly. Central Park Zoo, tomorrow at 10. It's her favorite place. As Michael confirmed the meeting, another text arrived, this one from Rebecca. I'm coming by to pick up some things I left at your place. Hope that's okay. Reality crashed back in Rebecca. In the whirlwind of the past 2 days, he'd almost forgotten about their unfinished conversation in the lobby. She deserved better than text messages and avoidance. An hour later, Rebecca stood in his living room, collecting a few items from the drawer he'd cleared for her months ago. The silence between them was heavy with words unsaid. I've been thinking, she finally spoke, folding a cashmere sweater with precise movements. About what you said in the lobby, about your daughter. Michael leaned against the wall, watching her. I'm meeting her tomorrow, properly, I mean. Rebecca's hands stilled on the sweater. You deserve that chance, to be a father. She turned to face him, her eyes bright with unshed tears. But I need you to understand something, Michael. I can't be part of this story. Not now. Rebecca, please, let me finish. She took a deep breath. I've watched you build walls around yourself for 8 months. Every time I got close to them, you'd change the subject, or work late, or find some other way to keep your distance. Now I know why. She smiled sadly. Those walls weren't meant to keep me out. They were meant to keep her in. Michael wanted to deny it, but the words stuck in his throat, because underneath the shock and anger of Janelle's revelations, there was something else. A feeling of completeness, as if a missing piece had finally clicked into place. You're going to fight for them, Rebecca continued. It wasn't a question. Whatever made her leave, whatever she's afraid of, you're already planning how to fix it. That's who you are. And they deserve that version of you, the one who fights, who cares, who doesn't hold back. She placed the folded sweater in her bag. I deserve that too, just with someone else. She crossed the room and kissed his cheek softly. Be happy, Michael, and be careful. After she left, Michael returned to his office, but his mind wasn't on work anymore. Instead, he found himself searching through old photos on his phone until he found one from his niece's birthday party last year. He'd been teaching her to play basketball, showing her how to dribble despite her small hands. Would Aubrey like basketball? What was her favorite color? Did she love stories before bed like he had as a child? 4 years of questions crowded his mind, along with a desperate desire to know every detail to make up for lost time. His phone buzzed again, another text from Janelle. This time it was a photo, Aubrey at what looked like a recent birthday party. Her face lit up with joy as she reached for a cake decorated with dancing penguins. The caption read, Thought you might want this. It's from her 4th birthday last month. Michael's vision blurred as he studied the image. She had his mother's smile, his sister's curls. How had he not seen it immediately in the park? How had he ever thought he could walk away after that first meeting? He saved the photo and then, after a moment's hesitation, sent one back, the picture of him teaching his niece basketball. Think she might want to learn someday. Janelle's response made his heart twist. She already loves basketball. Funny how some things are in the blood. A notification popped up on his computer. David had already started sending preliminary findings about Loretta Williams. The files were encrypted, marked urgent. Michael's jaw tightened as he began to read. The deeper he dug into Loretta's world, the more certain he became that Janelle's fears weren't paranoia, but that was tomorrow's battle. Tonight, he had 4 years of his daughter's life to learn about, and a trust to rebuild with the woman he'd never truly stopped loving. He closed the files and typed another message to Janelle. "Tell me everything about her. Start from the beginning." As the city lights began to twinkle outside his window, Michael settled in to read Janelle's responses, each message filling in another piece of the puzzle that was his daughter's life. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, meeting Aubrey properly, navigating this new reality, and facing whatever dangers Loretta's shadow held. But for now, he let himself imagine teaching Aubrey to dribble a basketball, hearing her call him Daddy again, this time with full understanding of what that word meant. And somehow, despite the complications and the lurking dangers, he knew that everything in his life had been leading to this moment. His daughter was waiting to meet him. Everything else could wait. The Central Park Zoo hummed with weekend activity as Janelle adjusted Aubrey's rainbow-striped beanie. Her daughter bounced on her toes, practically vibrating with excitement as they waited by the sea lion pool. Everything about this moment felt surreal. The crisp October morning, the chorus of animal sounds, the knowledge that in minutes Aubrey would properly meet her father. "Mommy, is the man from the park really coming?" Aubrey asked for the 3rd time, clutching her stuffed penguin, a constant companion since her last birthday. "Yes, baby." Janelle smoothed her daughter's coat. "His name is Michael, remember, and he's very excited to meet you." "Is he the one from your special box? The one who makes you cry sometimes?" Janelle's hands stilled. She'd never realized Aubrey had seen her during those late-night moments of weakness. Before she could respond, a familiar voice called out behind them. "Good morning." They turned to find Michael approaching, looking both professional and approachable in dark jeans and a camel-colored sweater. In his hands, he carried a gift bag decorated with cartoon penguins. Aubrey's grip on her stuffed penguin tightened as she pressed against Janelle's leg, suddenly shy. Michael knelt down to her eye level, maintaining a careful distance. "Hi, Aubrey. Your mum tells me you love penguins." He smiled, warm and gentle. "I brought you something, if that's okay." Aubrey looked up at Janelle, who nodded encouragingly. Slowly, the little girl stepped forward and accepted the bag. Inside was a plush emperor penguin, wearing a tiny backpack. "His backpack opens," Michael explained softly. "I thought maybe you could keep special treasures in there." Aubrey's face lit up as she discovered the hidden compartment. "Look, Mommy. He can carry things like my school bag." "What do we say?" Janelle prompted, her throat tight with emotion. "Thank you." Aubrey hugged the new penguin alongside her old one, her earlier shyness melting away. "Do you want to see the real penguins with us? They're my favorite." Michael's eyes met Janelle's over their daughter's head, both of them fighting back tears. "I'd love that," he managed. As they walked to the penguin exhibit, Aubrey's natural exuberance returned. She skipped ahead, chattering about her knowledge of different penguin species. Michael absorbed every word, asking questions that made her beam with pride in her expertise. "Did you know emperor penguins are the biggest?" Aubrey pressed her face against the viewing glass. "Mrs. Chen helped me read a whole book about them." "Mrs. Chen?" Michael glanced at Janelle. "Our neighbor. She watches Aubrey sometimes when I have night shifts at the hospital." Janelle's voice dropped. "She's been a godsend, especially since—" She trailed off, but Michael caught her subtle scan of their surroundings. He stepped closer, pitching his voice low. "David started digging. We should talk later." Janelle nodded tightly, then forced a smile as Aubrey called them over to watch a penguin diving for fish. The morning unfolded like a dream. They visited the snow leopards, where Aubrey demonstrated her impressive roar. At the red pandas, she shared her theory that they were actually foxes wearing raccoon suits, making Michael laugh so hard he had to wipe his eyes. Each moment felt precious, weighted with 4 years of absence. Near the children's zoo, Aubrey spotted an ice cream cart. As she and Michael waited in line, him lifting her up so she could study the flavor options, Janelle's phone buzzed. The number was blocked. "Hello." Her voice was steady, even as her hands began to shake. "Such a lovely family outing." Her mother's voice, smooth as honey and twice as dangerous, slid through the speaker. "The zoo was always your favorite place as a child, wasn't it, darling?" Janelle's blood ran cold. "How did you—" "That new penguin looks charming. Though I must say, Michael's taste in gifts has improved since law school." Janelle spun around, scanning the crowds. There, by the seabird sanctuary, a man in a dark jacket speaking into a phone. He smiled and waved when he caught her eye. "What do you want?" Janelle's fingers gripped the phone so hard they ached. "Can't a grandmother check in on her family?" Loretta's laugh was musical, poisonous. "Though I must admit, I'm disappointed. After all the trouble I went to, keeping you both safe, and now you've dragged poor Michael right back into danger. Keep away from them." Janelle's voice shook with fury. "I swear to God, Mother, if you— Now. Is that any way to speak to family? We should catch up properly. Dinner, perhaps? Just us girls." Loretta's tone hardened. "Tonight, 7 o'clock. The usual place. Come alone, or I might have to arrange a more public reunion." The line went dead. When Janelle looked back at the seabird sanctuary, the man was gone. "Mommy, I got strawberry." Aubrey's voice cut through her panic. She turned to find her daughter holding an ice cream cone, pink already smeared around her smiling mouth. Michael stood behind her, his own smile fading as he read Janelle's expression. "Baby, why don't you show Michael how the prairie dogs pop up?" Janelle suggested, fighting to keep her voice normal. "I'll be right there." Once Aubrey was absorbed in the prairie dog exhibit, Michael gripped Janelle's elbow. "What happened?" "She's watching us." Janelle's whisper was barely audible. "My mother, she wants to meet tonight." Michael's face hardened. "I'm coming with you." "No." Janelle grabbed his arm. "She said alone. And Michael—" "She had someone following us, taking pictures. If I don't go, then we'll get proof." His jaw set with determination. "Document everything. Build a case. Janelle, you don't have to face her alone anymore." A squeal of delight drew their attention back to Aubrey, who was giggling as a prairie dog popped up right in front of her. The sight of her joy, so pure and untouched by the darkness swirling around them, made Janelle's decision crystallize. "Tonight," she said finally. "I'll meet her tonight, but Michael—" She met his eyes, letting him see her fear and her resolve. "If anything happens to me, promise you'll keep Aubrey safe. Promise you'll never let my mother near her. Nothing's going to happen to you." He caught her hand, squeezing it fiercely. "We're in this together now. All of us." As if to emphasize his point, Aubrey ran back to them, grabbing both their hands to pull them toward the next exhibit. The weight of her small fingers intertwined with theirs felt like both a blessing and a responsibility, one that neither of them would ever take lightly again. But as they followed their daughter through the zoo, Janelle couldn't shake the chill of her mother's words. The game she'd been playing for 5 years was changing, and she knew better than anyone that Loretta Williams never made empty threats. Tonight would change everything. She just prayed she was strong enough to protect the ones she loved, no matter what the cost. La Maison d'Or hadn't changed in 5 years. The same heavy velvet drapes framed the windows. The same crystal chandeliers cast their warm glow over white tablecloths. And the same maître d' raised his eyebrows in recognition as Janelle approached. "Ms. Williams," he said, using her maiden name with pointed precision. "Your mother awaits you in the private dining room." Of course she did. The private dining room had always been Loretta's preferred setting for her most devastating performances. Janelle smoothed her black dress, chosen carefully to project strength she didn't feel, and followed the maitre d' through the restaurant. Her phone buzzed in her clutch. A text from Michael. "David's outside. Signal if you need us. Stay safe." She deleted the message immediately. Her mother had eyes everywhere. The private dining room door opened, And there she was. Loretta Williams sat like a queen holding court, elegant in cream-colored silk that emphasized her dark skin and ageless beauty. A half-empty glass of red wine sat before her, and her signature pearl necklace caught the light as she turned. Darling. Loretta's smile was a perfect curve of painted coral. You look thin. Has motherhood been so taxing? Janelle took her seat, declining the wine the server offered. What do you want, mother? Such hostility. Loretta sipped her wine. Can't a mother miss her daughter, her granddaughter? Her eyes sharpened. Though I must say, Aubrey has grown into quite the charming child. Those curls, pure Thomas family genetics. Janelle's hands clenched under the table. Stay away from her. Or what? Loretta's voice remained pleasant, but her eyes hardened. You'll run again. Honestly, darling, I expected better from you. New York? Really? Practically in my backyard. I'm done running. Yes, I noticed. Loretta set down her wine glass with precise movements. That little scene at the zoo was quite touching. Michael always did have a way with children. Such a shame he's gotten himself involved in things that don't concern him. Again, the server appeared with their appetizers. Beef carpaccio for Loretta, untouched soup for Janelle. When they were alone again, Loretta's mask slipped slightly. Do you have any idea what you've done? Her voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. The arrangements I made, the promises I kept, all to keep him safe, to keep you both safe, and you throw it away for what? Some fairy tale of playing happy families? Arrangements. Janelle leaned forward. You threatened to destroy his career, his family. I protected him. Loretta's composure cracked. And that Winchester Foundation case. He was digging into things that would have gotten him killed. Real killers. Janelle, not the corporate criminals he thinks he deals with. When I discovered he was getting close, she took a deep breath, straightening her pearls. Well, a ruined career is better than a closed casket. The soup churned in Janelle's stomach. You're lying. Am I? Loretta reached into her purse and withdrew a thick envelope. These photos were taken 2 days before you left. That's Michael, leaving his office. And that man following him. He works for people who don't send warning messages. They send flowers to funerals. Janelle's hands shook as she looked at the photos. Michael, younger and unaware, being stalked by a man whose cold eyes seemed to stare through the paper. I made a deal, Loretta continued, her voice softening. Your departure for his life. Simple, clean. Everyone walked away breathing. She took back the photos. But now you've complicated things. They've noticed him looking into old files, asking questions. Who are they? Better you don't know. Loretta dabbed her lips with her napkin. What matters is this. You have 24 hours to end it. Whatever rekindled romance you're playing at, whatever co-parenting dreams you're entertaining, end them. Take Aubrey and leave the city. I'll make arrangements, set you up somewhere new, somewhere safe, or I won't be able to protect any of you. Loretta's eyes met hers, and for the first time, Janelle saw something like fear in them. They're not as amenable to deals as they were 5 years ago, and this time they'll make sure there's nothing left to rebuild. Janelle's phone buzzed again. A photo from Mrs. Chen, Aubrey in her pajamas, reading a story with Michael. They'd arranged it so he could spend the evening with their daughter, a small piece of normalcy in this nightmare. In the photo, they wore matching expressions of concentration as they studied the book. They're beautiful together, aren't they? Loretta's voice made her jump. Her mother had moved to stand behind her, looking at the phone screen. She has his smile. I noticed that in the surveillance photos. Don't. 24 hours, Janelle. Loretta's hand squeezed her shoulder, her pearl bracelet cold against Janelle's skin. For their sakes, if not your own, don't make me do something we'll both regret. She gathered her things, elegant handbag, silk wrap, the envelope of damning photos, and paused at the door. The trust fund I set up for Aubrey, it's still active, more than enough for a fresh start. Think about her future, darling. What matters more, a father she barely knows, or a life without fear? After her mother left, Janelle sat alone in the private dining room, both meals untouched. Her phone buzzed one final time. Michael again. "Aubrey's asking for you, says she can't sleep without your special goodnight kiss. Come home to us." Home. Such a simple word for such a complicated truth. Outside the restaurant, David Chen watched Loretta Williams step into a Blacktown car. He noted the plate number, the driver's face, every detail his years as an investigator had taught him to observe. His own phone buzzed with an incoming call. "Tell me you got it." Michael's voice was tense, every word. David patted the surveillance equipment hidden in his jacket. The whole conversation, crystal clear, plus photos of everyone who came and went. "But Michael," he hesitated, "some of what she said, about the foundation, about the people behind it, it matches things I've been finding. This goes deeper than we thought." "Keep digging. And David, get me everything you can on that trust fund," she mentioned. "If she set it up 5 years ago, it might lead us to the people she's working with, or working for." David watched the town car's taillights disappear into traffic. What about Janelle? What's she going to do? In the background, he could hear Aubrey's voice asking for another story. "She'll do what she's always done," Michael said quietly. "Try to protect everyone, but this time, she's not alone. None of them are." The call ended, leaving David alone in the gathering darkness. Above him, the restaurant's golden light spilled out like a web of artificial stars, beautiful and treacherous. Somewhere in the city, dangerous men were watching his friend's family, while a grandmother played chess with her daughter's life. 24 hours. The clock was ticking. The digital clock on Michael's office wall clicked to 3:47 a.m., its red numbers casting a faint glow over the scattered papers and empty coffee cups littering his desk. In the conference room next door, David Chen's voice carried through the wall as he coordinated with his network of contacts, each call adding another piece to the puzzle of the Winchester Foundation. Janelle sat curled in Michael's office chair, her dinner dress exchanged for borrowed sweatpants and one of his old Harvard Law sweatshirts. Her eyes were fixed on the laptop screen before her, scanning through years of financial records David had uncovered. "Look at this," she said, turning the laptop toward Michael, who was pacing by the window. "These transfers from the trust fund, they all route through the same bank in the Cayman Islands." Michael leaned over her shoulder, his cologne familiar and comforting despite the tension thrumming through both of them. "The same bank that handled Winchester's offshore accounts. My mother doesn't make mistakes like that." Janelle rubbed her tired eyes. "She wanted us to find this connection. Question is why?" Michael straightened, his reflection in the window overlaying the city lights beyond. "Everything your mother does has layers. Even her threats aren't just threats." The door opened and David entered, his tie long discarded, shirt sleeves rolled up. "You need to hear this." He placed his phone on the desk, activating the speaker. "Go ahead, Carmen. I pulled those hospital records you asked for." A woman's voice crackled through the speaker. "Loretta Williams was admitted to Mount Sinai 3 times in the past year. Nothing major, mild chest pain, exhaustion. But here's the interesting part. Each admission coincided with a major staff change at the Winchester Foundation." "She's monitoring them," Michael said. The stress is affecting her health. Or she wants it to look that way," Janelle countered. "My mother once faked appendicitis to avoid a hostile takeover at her company. She called it strategic illness." David's phone buzzed with an incoming text. His expression darkened as he read it. "My guy at the SEC just confirmed. The Foundation's preparing for a major move. They're liquidating assets, transferring funds. Something big is coming." "How long?" Michael demanded. "Days, maybe less." Janelle stood abruptly, hugging herself. "This isn't just about us, is it? The 24-hour deadline, the breadcrumb trail of evidence, she's trying to tell us something." "But what?" Michael's phone chimed with a text. "Mrs. Chen says Aubrey's still sleeping peacefully." His voice softened. "We should get some rest, too." "We can't protect her if we're exhausted. I can't leave her alone. I've got 2 guys watching the apartment," David interrupted. "Best in the business. Nothing's getting near that building without us knowing. Janelle's protest was cut short by another voice from David's phone, a different contact. Found something on that trust fund structure. It's set up with an interesting trigger clause. If anything happens to Loretta Williams, all assets transfer immediately to offshore accounts. A dead man's switch, Michael breathed. She's not just protecting herself, she's protecting us, Janelle finished, from whoever's really pulling the strings. She turned to the window, pressing her forehead against the cool glass. All these years, I thought she was the spider at the center of the web. But she's just another fly, isn't she? Caught like the rest of us! Michael moved to stand beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. We have 17 hours until her deadline. What do you want to do? Janelle watched their reflections in the glass, remembering another night 5 years ago when she'd made a choice that broke both their hearts. We fight back, but this time, we do it together. David's phone buzzed again. My guy outside the restaurant just spotted Loretta. She's meeting someone at Dovetail. At 4 in the morning. Michael checked his watch. Private meeting, kitchen entrance. David was already grabbing his coat. Want me to follow? No. Janelle turned from the window, her expression determined. I'm going. She's my mother. I'll know if she's sending another message. Not alone, Michael said firmly. The clock's ticking, David reminded them. And if the Foundation's making moves, then we need to move faster. Janelle grabbed her purse. David, keep digging into those hospital records. The timing's too perfect. She must have known about the Foundation's plans in advance. What about Aubrey? Michael asked softly. Mrs. Chen will call if she wakes up. Right now, Janelle met his eyes. Right now, we need to make sure she has a future where she doesn't have to look over her shoulder. They took Michael's car, riding in tense silence through the pre-dawn streets. As they approached Dovetail, Janelle spotted her mother's town car idling in the alley beside the restaurant. Park here, she instructed. Close enough to see, far enough not to be noticed. They watched as a figure emerged from the kitchen entrance, not Loretta, but a man in an expensive suit, his silver hair distinctive even in the dim light. That's Adrian Winchester, Michael whispered. The Foundation's CEO. I interviewed him during the original investigation. Loretta emerged next, her cream silk replaced by a simple black pantsuit. Even from a distance, her body language was clear, tension in every line. Winchester handed her something, a manila envelope. As she reached for it, the streetlight caught her face, and Janelle gasped. What? Michael asked. She's afraid, Janelle said softly. I've never seen her afraid before. They watched as Winchester got into a waiting car, leaving Loretta alone in the alley. She stood there for a long moment, then did something completely out of character. She slumped against the wall, one hand pressing against her chest. The hospital visits, Janelle murmured. They weren't fake. Before Michael could respond, Loretta straightened, composing herself with visible effort. She opened the envelope, read something inside, then did something else unprecedented. She took out her phone and photographed the contents. Insurance, Michael said. Your evidence. Loretta returned to her car, which pulled away smoothly, but as it passed their position, Janelle could have sworn her mother looked directly at them, her expression unreadable in the darkness. Follow her, Michael asked, hand on the ignition. No! Janelle's mind was racing. She knew we'd come. The photos, the meeting location. It was staged for us. She's telling us where to look. The Foundation's records. Deeper than that. Janelle pulled out her phone, scrolling through old photos until she found what she was looking for, a picture from her childhood. She and her mother at a charity gala, Loretta wearing that same pearl necklace she never took off. The pearls. She always said they were her insurance policy, but I never understood what she meant. Michael studied the photo. They look real. They are. Family heirlooms. Janelle zoomed in on the image. But my mother doesn't believe in sentiment. Everything she keeps has a purpose. You think the pearls are more than pearls? Janelle met his eyes. Only one way to find out. But first, she took a deep breath. We need to get Aubrey somewhere safe. Really safe. Michael nodded slowly. I have an idea. But you're not going to like it. The sun was beginning to lighten the eastern sky, painting the city in shades of grey and gold. Somewhere in that awakening metropolis, a little girl slept peacefully, unaware that her parents were racing against time to unravel a conspiracy that had separated them for 5 years. They had 16 hours left to solve the puzzle, find the evidence, and figure out how to protect everyone they loved. And somewhere in the city, Loretta Williams clutched a manila envelope and hoped her daughter was clever enough to understand the breadcrumbs she'd spent 5 years laying out, waiting for exactly this moment. The game was changing. The real question was, who was actually playing it? No! Janelle's voice echoed through Michael's kitchen as the morning sun streamed through the windows. Absolutely not. We are not involving your parents in this. Michael continued, packing Aubrey's favorite cereal into a bag, his movements deliberate. My father's restaurant is 3 hours upstate. Off the grid, cash only, no credit card trails. Mom and Dad live in the apartment above it. There's no safer place for Aubrey right now. That's exactly why we can't... Can't what? He turned to face her. Can't trust the people who raised me, who taught me about family and protection and doing whatever it takes for the ones you love. Aubrey's sleepy voice interrupted their tension. Mommy, why are we at Michael's house? They both turned to find their daughter in the kitchen doorway, still in her penguin pajamas, clutching both her stuffed penguins, the old one and Michael's gift. Mrs. Chen stood behind her, carrying Aubrey's overnight bag. Good morning, sweetheart. Janelle forced brightness into her voice. How would you like to go on a special adventure? Aubrey's eyes lit up. What kind of adventure? Michael knelt down to her level. Well, I was thinking you might like to meet your grandparents, my mom and dad. They have a restaurant with the best chocolate chip pancakes in the whole world. Better than Mrs. Chen's pancakes. Aubrey looked skeptical. Mrs. Chen laughed softly. Much better, little one, and I hear they have a secret recipe. Is it far? Aubrey asked, moving to examine the bags Michael was packing. A few hours, he said carefully. But I thought maybe you and Mrs. Chen could ride up with my sister Anna. She's dying to meet you, and she has 2 kids about your age. Janelle's protest died in her throat as she watched Aubrey's face brighten at the mention of potential playmates. Their daughter had always been lonely, a side effect of constantly moving, constantly watching over their shoulders. What about you and Mommy? Aubrey's question carried a hint of anxiety. We have to take care of some grown-up business, Janelle said softly. But we'll come get you very soon, I promise. Mrs. Chen touched Janelle's arm. Anna is downstairs. David's people checked her car and the route. Everything is secure. The next 30 minutes passed in a blur of activity. Aubrey, excited by the prospect of an adventure, barely protested when they hustled her into Anna's SUV. Michael's sister, a warm-eyed woman with his same determined jaw, hugged them both fiercely. Mom and Dad are ready, she whispered. They've already closed the restaurant for a private event. No one will know she's there. Anna, Michael's voice was rough. Thank you. Hey, I finally get to be an aunt. She smiled, but her eyes were serious. Fix this, whatever it is. Make it safe for her to know her family. They watched the SUV pull away, Aubrey waving excitedly from between her penguins. When it turned the corner, Janelle let out a shaky breath. She'll be safe there, Michael said quietly. Dad's got half the town on his payroll, locals who've known our family for generations. If anyone strange shows up asking questions, your father's restaurant, Janelle turned to him suddenly. It's cash only, off the grid. That's why you really chose it, isn't it? Not just for safety. Michael nodded. If we need to disappear, all of us, Dad can help. He knows people who know people. But first, he checked his watch. We have 12 hours to solve this. David's waiting at the office with what he found about the pearls. The drive to Michael's office was tense, both of them raw from watching their daughter drive away. But when they arrived, David's expression told them it had been worth it. The pearls aren't just pearls, he said without preamble, spreading photos across the conference table. Look at these X-rays from Loretta's last hospital visit. Janelle leaned in. The necklace. There's something inside each pearl. Micro SD cards, David confirmed, probably containing every piece of evidence she's gathered over the past 5 years. The perfect hiding place. She wears them constantly, keeps them close. That's why she staged that show at Dovetail, Michael said. She wanted us to figure this out. But why not just give us the evidence? Janelle asked. Because she's being watched too closely now. David pulled up an email on his laptop. That SEC contact. The foundation's not just moving money. They're completely restructuring. Adrian Winchester is stepping down next week, handing control to his son. The son, Janelle breathed. That's what changed. That's why the deals aren't holding anymore. Michael was already pulling up files on his computer. Roman Winchester, 32 years old, Harvard Business School. No criminal record, but he turned the screen to show them a photo. Look who he's dating. Janelle felt the blood drain from her face. The society page photo showed Roman Winchester at a charity gala, his arm around a laughing woman. Rebecca. You're Rebecca, Janelle asked softly. She never wanted those walls to come down, Michael said grimly, because she was gathering information too. David's phone buzzed. He read the message and swore softly. Winchester's people are moving. They figured out Aubrey's gone. Then we move faster. Janelle straightened, her fear hardening into determination. We need those pearls. Your mother won't just hand them over, Michael warned. No. Janelle's smile was sharp, but I know where she keeps them at night, in a safe in her bathroom, behind her favorite Monet. You'll never get in, David protested. Her security won't stop me. Janelle met Michael's eyes. Because I still have a key, and because every night at exactly 8:45 she takes a bath. It's been her routine for 30 years. That gives us, Michael checked his watch, 10 hours to plan, to get everything in place. 9 hours, Janelle corrected, because when we get those pearls, we need time to get the evidence to someone who can use it. Someone whose career can't be destroyed by Winchester's people. Understanding dawned in Michael's eyes. The Attorney General, my old professor from law school. She's been after the foundation for years. She just never had enough proof. Then what are we waiting for? David was already reaching for his phone. I'll get my people in position. As they began to plan, Janelle's phone buzzed with a text from Anna. A photo of Aubrey and Michael's parents' restaurant kitchen, wearing a tiny apron, helping his father make chocolate chip pancakes. Her smile was radiant. The sight strengthened Janelle's resolve. They had 9 hours to break into her mother's house, steal a necklace full of evidence, and bring down one of the most powerful foundations in New York. 9 hours to ensure their daughter could smile like that every day, without fear or shadows. 9 hours to finish what Loretta had started 5 years ago, when she chose to protect them all in the only way she knew how. The clock was ticking. The hum of David's surveillance van filled the silence as Janelle checked her watch for the 100th time, 8:40 p.m. Through the van's tinted windows, her childhood home loomed against the darkening sky, its Georgian columns and manicured hedges a monument to old money and carefully guarded secrets. Security feed is looped. David's voice crackled through her earpiece. You've got 30 minutes before the system resets. Michael's hand found hers in the darkness. You don't have to do this. We could find another way. No. Janelle squeezed his fingers once before letting go. We couldn't. She stepped out of the van, her heels clicking softly against the pavement. The black cocktail dress she wore was exactly the kind of outfit her mother would approve of. Classic, expensive, perfect for hiding in plain sight. The key she'd kept for 5 years felt heavy in her clutch. Guards are changing shifts, David murmured in her ear. Now. Janelle walked up the familiar path, her muscle memory guiding her to the service entrance her mother always used when returning late. The key slid home silently, and then she was inside, surrounded by the scent of lemon polish and old wood. Somewhere above, she could hear water running, her mother's nightly bath, right on schedule. Janelle moved through the darkness, avoiding the creaky floorboard near the pantry, the squeaky hinge on the kitchen door. The house's familiar patterns felt like a map written in her bones. 5 heat signatures, David reported. 3 guards on the ground floor, 1 in the security office upstairs, and your mother in the master suite." Janelle climbed the back stairs, her heart thundering so loudly she was sure someone would hear it. At the top, she pressed herself against the wall as footsteps approached, then passed, the guard doing his rounds, right on schedule. The master suite door was unlocked. Of course it was. Loretta Williams had never believed in locking herself in, only others out. Steam billowed from the bathroom, and Janelle could hear her mother humming softly, an old lullaby she used to sing when Janelle was small. Moving silently, she approached the Monet that concealed the wall safe. "Your mother's phone just lit up." David's voice was tense. "She's getting a call." The humming stopped. Janelle froze as her mother's voice carried through the bathroom door. "Roman, what an unexpected pleasure." Janelle's blood ran cold. Through her earpiece, she could hear David swearing softly. "Of course I understand the urgency," Loretta's voice continued, smooth as silk. "But surely this could wait until—" "I see. No, that won't be necessary. I'll meet you there in an hour." The bath water began to drain. "Janelle!" Michael's voice was urgent in her ear. "Get out, now!" But her fingers were already working the combination she'd memorized years ago. Her birthday, her father's death date, the year Loretta had started her first company. The safe door swung open silently. The bathroom door clicked. "I was wondering when you'd come for them." Janelle turned slowly. Loretta stood in the doorway wrapped in a silk robe, her wet hair sleek against her head, the pearl necklace gleaming at her throat. She hadn't even bothered to put it in the safe. "Mother, did you really think I wouldn't know?" Loretta moved to her vanity, began applying cream to her face with practiced movements. "The key you kept, the way you've been watching the house. I taught you everything you know about surveillance, darling." Through her earpiece, David was coordinating an extraction team. But before Janelle could move, her mother spoke again. "Roman Winchester is on his way here. Now, with his father." Loretta's eyes met Janelle's in the mirror. "They know about Aubrey." The world tilted sideways. "How?" "Because I told them." Loretta's hands stilled on her face cream. "Because I had to make them believe I was still loyal, still useful, still willing to sacrifice my own daughter and granddaughter to protect their secrets." She turned, and for the first time, Janelle saw past her mother's perfect mask to the exhaustion beneath. "The pictures from the zoo, you staged those." "Of course I did, just like I staged the meeting at Dovetail, just like I've staged everything for the past 5 years, building a trail of evidence so perfect that even the great Michael Reyes couldn't ignore it." Loretta's smile was bitter. "Did you really think I'd keep evidence in a safe you knew about? In pearls I wear every day." "Then where? The real evidence is already with the Attorney General." Loretta moved to her closet, began pulling out clothes with swift efficiency. "I sent it this morning, after I confirmed you'd moved Aubrey to safety. Quite clever, using Robert's restaurant. Winchester's people would never think to look in a cash-only business 3 hours upstate." Janelle's mind raced to catch up. "You knew. You've known everything. I'm your mother." Loretta's voice softened slightly. "I've been 3 steps ahead of you since the day you were born." She pressed a phone into Janelle's hands, a burner, already programmed. "The Winchesters will be here in 20 minutes. You need to be gone in 10. Come with us." "No." Loretta fixed her hair, added lipstick with practiced precision. "Someone needs to play the grieving grandmother when they discover you've slipped away again. Someone needs to maintain their trust while the Attorney General builds her case. They'll kill you." "Perhaps." Loretta finally turned to face her daughter fully. "But they'll have to find me first. I didn't build an empire by being easy to catch." She touched Janelle's cheek, her fingers cool and smooth. "Take care of my granddaughter and Janelle. When this is over, perhaps we can try again, without the secrets this time." Footsteps thundered up the stairs, David's extraction team, right on schedule. But before they reached the door, Loretta pressed one final thing into Janelle's hands, a small USB drive. "For Aubrey," she said softly. "Videos, photos, moments I collected even though I couldn't be there. She should know she was always loved, always protected, even by a grandmother who had to love her from a distance." The door burst open. David's team moved with practiced efficiency, but Loretta was already stepping away, her mask of cool disdain firmly back in place. "Goodbye, darling," she said, loud enough for the guards downstairs to hear. "Do give my granddaughter a kiss for me, though I doubt I'll see her again, given your penchant for disappearing." They hustled Janelle out through the service entrance, into the waiting van where Michael pulled her close. As they drove away, she caught one final glimpse of her mother through an upstairs window, regal, untouchable, already preparing to play her part in the drama to come. "She knew," Janelle whispered against Michael's shoulder. "She knew everything. And now we know too." Michael's voice was fierce. The Attorney General will have her evidence. The Winchesters will be exposed, and Aubrey will be safe." Janelle clutched the USB drive, thinking of her mother collecting moments like precious stones, building a legacy of love in secret. "What do we do now?" "Now." Michael pressed a kiss to her temple. "Now we go get our daughter, and we start building the life we should have had 5 years ago." As the van sped through the darkness toward safety, toward family, toward a future without shadows, Janelle thought about patterns, the ones that shaped us, the ones we chose to break, and the ones we created anew. Her mother had chosen her pattern long ago, weaving a web of protection and sacrifice that was only now becoming clear. Maybe it was time for a new pattern, one built on truth instead of secrets, love instead of fear, one that finally brought them all home. 3 months later, Central Park was covered in snow, the morning sunlight turning every surface into diamond dust. Janelle stood by the sea lion pool, empty now for the winter, and watched her breath form clouds in the cold air. The park was quiet, peaceful in a way that seemed impossible given the chaos that had erupted in New York's financial district just yesterday. The headlines were still splashed across every newspaper. Winchester Foundation executives indicted, decades of fraud exposed. Adrian Winchester and son arrested in pre-dawn raid and buried in the middle pages. A smaller headline that few would understand the true significance of: Loretta Williams, named key witness in ongoing investigation. Hot chocolate delivery. Michael's voice pulled her from her thoughts. He approached with 3 steaming cups, Aubrey skipping beside him in her pink snow boots and matching winter coat. Their daughter's cheeks were rosy with cold and excitement. "Can we see the penguins after this, Daddy?" Aubrey asked, accepting her cup carefully with mittened hands. The word "Daddy" now fell from her lips naturally, as if she'd been saying it all her life. "Of course, sweetheart." Michael's smile still brightened every time she called him that. "Though they might be inside today. It's pretty cold." "That's okay." Aubrey took a careful sip of her hot chocolate. "Mrs. Chen says penguins like the cold, and Grandma Rose sent me a new book about them." Janelle smiled at the mention of Michael's mother, who had transformed from a safe harbor into a doting grandmother with remarkable speed. The restaurant upstate had become their regular weekend destination, each visit filled with cooking lessons, family stories, and the kind of unconditional love Aubrey had missed in her early years. Speaking of grandmothers, Michael's voice was gentle as he handed Janelle a newspaper. "Have you read it yet?" She shook her head. "I was waiting. It still doesn't feel quite real." "Read it now, Mommy." Aubrey pressed against her side. "I'll help with the big words." Janelle unfolded the paper, her eyes finding the relevant paragraph immediately. Sources close to the investigation credit Loretta Williams, former board member of the Winchester Foundation, with providing crucial evidence that led to today's arrests. Ms. Williams, who has been working with federal investigators for the past 5 years, reportedly compiled extensive documentation of the Foundation's illegal activities. 5 years, Michael said softly. Everything she did, every move she made, was to protect us. Janelle folded the paper carefully. To protect everyone. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "The penguins are lovely this time of year. Perhaps next weekend. If you're amenable to some grandmother-granddaughter time." Janelle showed the message to Michael, who squeezed her hand. "Your call," he said quietly. Aubrey, who had been watching the exchange with careful eyes that missed nothing, tugged on Janelle's coat. "Is that from Grandmother Loretta? The one who sent me the videos?" They had watched the USB drive's contents together as a family. Birthdays Loretta had observed from a distance, dance recitals she'd had filmed, quiet moments in parks and playgrounds, years of love captured in secret, waiting for the day they could be shared. "Yes, baby." Janelle knelt down to Aubrey's level. "She'd like to meet you properly." "Would you like that?" Aubrey considered this with the serious expression she reserved for important decisions. "Will she tell me stories about when you were little? Knowing my mother, she has albums full of them. Then yes." Aubrey nodded decisively. "But can Daddy come too? And Mrs. Chen, and Grandma Rose and Grandpa Robert?" Michael laughed softly. "I think we can arrange that. Though we might need a bigger table." Janelle typed a quick reply. "The Penguins would love some company. Bring those albums you mentioned. Our daughter wants to know everything." The response came immediately. "Everything. No more secrets, I promise." They finished their hot chocolate and made their way to the Penguin house, Aubrey between them, holding both their hands. She chatted about her plans for the weekend, showing Grandmother Loretta her new penguin facts, introducing her to both stuffed penguins, now named Waddles and Sir Flips, maybe even getting her to try Mrs. Chen's special dumpling recipe. Inside the penguin house, they found a quiet corner to watch the birds dive and play. Aubrey pressed her face against the glass, completely absorbed. Michael wrapped an arm around Janelle's waist, pulling her close. You know," he murmured, "this is where we had our first date. The penguins were your favorite then, too." "I remember." Janelle leaned into him. "You kept making terrible penguin puns. They were sophisticated ornithological observations. You asked if they were wearing tiny tuxedos to a formal swimming event." He laughed, the sound echoing slightly in the quiet space. "And you laughed so hard you snorted your coffee. And fell in love," she added softly. "Right here, watching you try so hard to make me smile." Michael turned her to face him, his eyes serious despite his smile. "Marry me." Janelle's breath caught. "What?" He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Not the sapphire ring from years ago, but something new, something that spoke of fresh starts and chosen paths. "I've had this ring for 3 weeks," he said quietly, waiting for the perfect moment. "But watching you and Aubrey here, in the place where everything began, I don't want to wait anymore. We've waited long enough." He opened the box to reveal a platinum band set with tiny diamonds that caught the blue light from the penguin tank. "Marry me, Janelle. Let's make official what's already true in our hearts. Let's be the family we were always meant to be." "Mommy!" Aubrey's excited voice interrupted before Janelle could respond. "The penguins are dancing." "Look!" They turned to find 2 penguins engaged in what looked like an elaborate courtship dance, bobbing and weaving in perfect synchronization. "Even they're saying yes," Michael whispered. Janelle laughed through sudden tears. "Yes," she said, loud enough for Aubrey to turn around. "Yes to all of it." Their daughter's eyes widened as she spotted the ring box. "Are you getting married? Like in the princess stories?" "If that's okay with you," Michael said seriously. Aubrey launched herself at them both, nearly knocking them over. "Yes, can I be the flower girl? Can I wear a princess dress? Can the penguins come?" As they laughed and hugged and began to plan, Janelle thought about patterns again, the ones that shaped us, the ones we chose to break, and the ones we created anew. 5 years ago, she'd stood in this same spot, young and in love and unaware of the challenges ahead. Now she stood here again, stronger for the battles fought, richer for the love tested and proven, complete in a way she'd never imagined possible. Later, as they walked through the snowy park toward home, their home, together, Aubrey skipping ahead with her penguins, Michael's ring warm on her finger, Janelle sent one final text to her mother. "We're getting married. All of us together. No more shadows. Will you help us plan it?" The response made her smile, Only if you let me buy her that princess dress. After all, every little girl deserves some magic in her story. Magic, Janelle thought, watching her daughter throw snowballs at her laughing father. Sometimes it wasn't in grand gestures or fairy tale moments. Sometimes it was in second chances, in truths finally spoken, in families pieced together with love and understanding and forgiveness. Sometimes it was simply in coming home to the people who had been waiting for you all along. The end. Thanks for watching to the end. Did you like the story? Tell us what you thought in the comments below. We want to know what you think. Don't forget to leave your like and subscribe now for more exciting stories you won't want to miss. Activate the bell to be notified whenever a new video comes out. See you in the next story. See you there.